We have arrived, ladies and gentlemen. UFC 285 is finally here. We are finally ending the evil streak of shitty, terrible cards. If you are someone that kind of watches a UFC card from time to time, the very sight of this main event should be enough to get your casual ass involved here. It's a fight between arguably the greatest MMA fighter of all time and a straight up monster for the heavyweight strap, and it doesn't get any bigger than that. Alright, looking at the opening fight of the main card, if you're interested in numbers, there is a lot here that's just going to make you outright confused. Firstly, you're going to be asking yourself, who is this pasty ginger man with a 3-0 record? Is that minus 1400 odds I see? Does that read as a 23 takedown average? This must be a mistake, I hear you say. You would be correct. These are very abnormal numbers. This man was basically given a shot in the Contender Series with a 1-0 professional record, and I can't remember the last time I've ever seen anything like that. You will notice at this point that I'm not saying anything about his opponent, and I'm just gonna say, I kind of feel like they're giving Bo Nickle the kind of Hamzat treatment when he first turned up in the UFC. This is a mismatch of ridiculous proportions. It will be a miracle if this fight goes beyond a minute. I reckon Bo Nickle's gonna pick him up, slam him on his head. Pickett actually looks like he should be good. He's not. I'm picking Bo Nickle by murder. Alright, now on paper, this does look like a nice matchup. Turner's been on a tear as of late, and he's getting picked by quite a few experts on this one. Problem is, his opponents have been Brad Riddell and Jamie Malarkey lately, and that doesn't really impress me too much. Now, what really pisses me off about Jalen Turner is he's basically the definition of a weight bully. He's 6'2", and he's fighting at 155 pounds. Now, to put that into perspective, that's 2 inches shorter than the two heavyweight main eventers we're going to be talking about later. That's 4 full weight classes below those two men. And I kind of want him to catch a beating just for that. Now, Turner, regardless of what my opinion is on this, he's looked really good in his last few fights. But his success has come primarily against strikers. Throughout his career, Turner's had really bad problems with just merely competent grapplers. And Gamrot is as elite as it comes in this area. I implore any of you to watch his fight with Arman Tsarukyan. Even those of you that are striking fanatics will not be able to help but appreciate what was on display in that fight. Now, can Turner catch Gamrot? It's MMA, and it's possible. And if he does, then he's convinced me that he's a problem in this division. But Turner lost to Matt Frevola, and he got thrown around in that fight, and that's Matt Frevola. No offense, he's garbage. I know that was 3 years ago, but the way he got ragdolled in that one, I simply can't pick him against an elite grappler like Gamrot, who's literally on a different... He might as well be a different species to Frevola when it comes to this type of approach. He's a grappling prodigy. If Turner can't catch him early, I can see this being a really long 3 rounds for him. And I think Gamrot teaches this weight bully a lesson with a dominant UD win. Alright, the odds on this one, I'm going to admit, are a little bit fucked up. I don't think Rakhmanov should be this heavy a favourite, but it's not ridiculous. Now, Rakhmanov kind of reminds me of that quiet kid that you barely notice at school, and then one day, you know that school bully that everyone hates? He decides one day to pick on that kid, just sees an easy target, thinks, I'm just going to pick on this kid, only for that quiet guy to out of nowhere beat the fuck out of him in epic and memorable fashion. Now let's ignore the fact that they both have common opponents in Neale Magny for a moment, and that Magny got dismantled by one of these men and easily dismantled the other man. Let's overlook that for a moment, because as we know, MMA math is stupid. Rakhmanov is basically a cyborg killing machine that was probably made in an underground laboratory somewhere. Now, we all know that I'm partial to taking some underdogs when there's a path to victory there, and I'm not saying that there's no hope for Neale in this fight. Rakhmanov's just different in my opinion. If you look at the numbers, he's not as active a striker as Neale, but he is as high level as it gets in how he places and times his strikes, and even more so in how he applies his takedowns. His pressure is just relentless. He has an insanely high fight IQ, and IQ is often really greatly overlooked in MMA, and this is where the biggest disparity lays between these two men for me. I'm really not shitting on Neale here. He's earned this spot. I just think Rakhmanov is a potential champion in the next 12 months, and I'm saying this in a division that's really good. I will say this, I actually think Neale makes it to the final bell, and that's a big compliment here considering the odds here. I'm going to say 29-28 with Neale maybe even edging around. Okay, I'm going to keep this one brief as I have more important things to get to here. Now, no offense, but no one really cares about this fight. Shevchenko is very good, I guess. If I'm being honest, she kind of has built a fake legacy for herself, as most of the time is kind of like a grown woman just beating up little kids. The simple fact is that everything above women's strawweight is basically just embarrassing. Now, looking at the matchup itself, two of Shevchenko's losses came against Amanda Nunes, who, let's be real here, is a dude. And I think Shevchenko actually got robbed a little in the second fight. I actually thought she won that. Now, if you look on the other side of the bracket, Grasso, she's a decent contender. She lost to Carla Esparza, who basically spent 25 minutes staring at Rose Namajunas to win the title in one of the worst fights I've ever seen in my life. I admit I'm going a little bit off topic here, but now there's no way on earth that any champion should be entering a fight as a minus 625 favorite. That should never be happening. Now, Grasso, she does have very decent boxing. Is she gonna knock Shevchenko out? Nothing's impossible, I guess, but this is as close to impossible as I can call in a combat sports situation. Shevchenko did get a little bit casual in her last fight and almost lost. A lot of people say she lost. I felt she won the fight pretty clearly, 4 rounds to 1. I think the reason why people saw it that way is she's usually so dominant that any closeness created between her and anyone else gets blown out of proportion, and I think that's what happened there. Yeah, I do think she got a little casual in that last fight, and I think that's going to give her a little jolt here. I think she's going to step up the game for this one, and I think she finishes Grasso a little later in the fight. I just hope it doesn't suck the enthusiasm out of what's going to be a really unbelievable main event, I believe. Nah, I'm kidding. There's no way it does that, no matter how much this fight potentially sucks. I'm calling Shevchenko by late stoppage. Who cares either way? I actually kind of hope that Grasso wins, you know, just for the banter. Alright, now let's be real, ladies and gentlemen. Despite how good some of the fights are on this main card, this is the real reason why we're here. I am absolutely buzzing for this one. I never thought it was going to happen. I'm still surprised that it's here. To be honest, this fight deserves a video all by itself, and I might just do a detailed breakdown the night before, just going into the specific reasons why I've made the pick that I have. This fight is huge. A lot of people are picking Ciryl Gane, and for really good reason. His distant management is elite. He's extremely patient. He's highly intelligent in there. And I mean, look at the man. He's built like a brick shithouse. He's also very, very likable as well, which I know that might not mean a lot to some people, but I do think that plays a factor in why people pick fighters. you know, and that's to not take away from Gane's ability, because he is an amazing heavyweight. There's also been a lot of talk about the glaring disadvantages on the side of Jones, and I have to bring these up here. Firstly, there's the very strong argument that Jones has been highly unimpressive in his last few bouts. Now, many argue that Reyes beat him and that Thiago Santos beat him with 2 blown out knees, and frankly, I agree with both those statements. Jon Jones lost both those fights, in my opinion. People argue that Jon Jones has also been out of the cage for 3 years, which is also an impossible factor to ignore. There's a lot of debates about ring rust and how valid it is, but 3 years out of the cage at the elite level is a big issue. They also argue that he has had a reach advantage throughout his career, a reach and height advantage that he often held at light heavyweight, which he's not going to have in there against Cyril Gane. There's also the argument that Jones's twiglet calves are going to catch up to him. He's got terrible calf genetics, and Gane has these thick tree trunk legs. He's going to chop away at those calves. Again, a very hard argument to argue against. There's also the elephant in the room about Jon Jones and, you know, a long-standing belief that he's been on the secret juice, and now he no longer has that advantage. Another big issue. There's also a massive unknown with Jones piling on almost 50 pounds to make this move up to heavyweight. And when you side that against the fact that Gane is a natural, not just a natural heavyweight, but a very talented heavyweight to boot, that only has 1 loss on his career, a career loss that you can argue he never got. I personally agree with that. I thought he beat Ngannou 3 rounds to 2. I think a robbery was a bit strong, but I felt he won that fight. So for all these reasons, I'm going to be picking against everyone. I'm picking Jones. Now, I'll probably break this down in detail before the fight actually takes place. But not only do I think that Jones, along with Mighty Mouse Demetrius Johnson, is one of the most skilled and dynamic men to ever walk in the cage, I don't think you can argue that anyone in the game has had the natural instincts and fight IQ that this man possesses. Now, if this was a prime Jon Jones, I would have no doubts in picking Jones to win this fight. I think a prime Jones would destroy Gane, and I'm not saying that lightly. I'm not shitting on Gane. What I am doing is I'm banking that the time he has taken off to get ready for this is going to pay off. I can't bet against a man that I believe is, if not the best, then in the top 2 best to ever do it. He's a piece of shit human, and honestly, I would not be disappointed to see Gane win. Gane is a great personality. This is one of those rare instances where it kind of feels like a win-win, whoever wins this one. We either crown an undisputed GOAT, and that's basically what's at stake here. If Jones wins this fight, the debate over who the greatest of all time, for now at least, is over. Or we get a really legit champion back at heavyweight, which in many ways you could argue is the crown jewel of the UFC and of MMA in general. Alright, so as I've said, I have an overall record this year, an impressive record, I do have to say, of 45-21, which gives me a win ratio, for those of you who are keeping score, of 68% on the year. As I said, I probably will be giving this main event the detailed breakdown it deserves. I especially want to go into detail in particular about that second fight that Jones had with Daniel Cormier, where the fight IQ on display was just out of this world, and it's something that's always stuck with me, and why I'd find it very difficult to pick Jon Jones despite the numerous things I've mentioned being stacked against him. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm sure that whoever's listening to this is too. So I'll see you again on Saturday night, where I'll do a quick breakdown or a detailed breakdown of this fight, and then I'll react to every fight on the card as is becoming the norm on this channel. I look forward to seeing you guys on the weekend, and have a great week ahead.